Mike Sievert, who is the CEO of T-Mobile, is our guest. And just briefly, for those who don't know his background, he's a native of Canton, Ohio, graduate of Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, has had a series of jobs with lots of different employers after Wharton, Procter & Gamble, IBM, AT&T, among others. And then eventually he was recruited to be the chief marketing officer for T-Mobile and quickly rose up to become the chief operating officer, the president, and in 2020 became the CEO. And since he's been the CEO, the market capitalization of the company is up 57%, and the stock is up 55%. And he's assured us this will continue, right?
Absolutely. That's the job.
So very impressive. He is father of 2 sons, one of whom is a mountaineer. And if anybody wants to go mountain climbing, your son will arrange it for him. And I'm just curious, before we start, how many people here have a cell phone? Anybody? Okay. And how many people think they could live without their cell phone these days? Anybody? Okay. So
a couple people. That's good. All right.
So
2.
Let me ask you first about your outfit.
Yep.
Usually people wear a coat and tie sometimes, but you don't, you have any socks, you got
I put my big boy coat on for you, though.
Okay.
So
what is that? Is that like a sport coat and then it's got a zipper, and what is that?
Yeah, it's like a rebellious sport coat.
Okay. So let's talk about the company. Today, there are essentially 3 big cellular telephone companies in the United States. And when I was doing the research, I was surprised to read that you actually are the second biggest. Verizon's the biggest right now, you're second, and then AT&T is third. So is your aspiration to become the biggest or the most profitable? What is your aspiration for T-Mobile?
It's to be the best,
okay.
And I think a company has got to take its mission seriously. And when we wrote ours down, when we created the new company after the merger, it's very simply to be the best in the world at connecting customers to their world. And we're a pure play mobile internet company, and our aspiration is to be the best. And if we're the best, and we have a long way to go, if we're the best in the world, maybe being number 1 in the US will take care of itself.
Okay, so you're not going to go buy Time Warner or anything like that, right?
No. I mean, are they available?
Okay.
You'd have to take Discovery with it these days. Yeah.
Okay, so on cellular telephones, you are the biggest in 5G, right?
Right.
How did that happen? I mean, why do you have more spectrum from 5G than anybody else?
Well, part of it was that our company saw early that 5G would really unfold in what the industry calls mid-band spectrum. And these are the Goldilocks airwaves right in the middle of the spectrum, where it's not the real low ones, but it's also not what was called millimeter wave spectrum, which is what the whole industry had equated to 5G before. And our competitors were absolutely dedicated to the idea that 5G would unfold there, when we made a bet that it would unfold in mid-band. Sprint had absolutely a treasure trove of mid-band spectrum, but was a struggling company, financially strained, but with incredible assets for what we knew would be the place where 5G would really unfold. And so we began pursuing a merger with Sprint. It was off and on for many years. I mean, we had merger talks in 14 and other years, but finally in 18, we announced a merger with Sprint under the idea that if we could complete this merger, we could transform not only our company, but the American wireless industry, and we would have an absolutely incredible lead in 5G.
So the U.S. government, moving with great speed, approved it after 2 years, right?
That's right, 2 full years, yeah.
So they approved it for 2 years,
Yeah.
but to review the history, T-Mobile was started by what company?
Yeah, so T-Mobile started in the 90s as Western Wireless. John Stanton, who's the current owner of the Seattle Mariners, started the company. He was with McCaw Cellular. So most of the U.S. cellular industry that we know today stemmed from either the Ma Bell or from entrepreneurship in the Seattle area. McCaw Cellular started in the Seattle area. That's the corpus of what's now AT&T. And Western Wireless began in the 90s by a McCaw guy, John Stanton. And Western spawned VoiceStream, which became T-Mobile in 2002.
And then Deutsche Telekom ultimately bought control of the company?
Yeah, in 2002. That's what gave us our T-Mobile name. Deutsche Telekom fully controlled the company as it was a subsidiary until we became a U.S. public company in 2013. So We merged with Metro PCS, now Metro by T-Mobile in 13, and became again an American company with Deutsche Telekom, a shareholder.
So who owned Sprint?
Sprint was controlled by SoftBank, big global technology and telecom conglomerate, and SoftBank took control of Sprint in the 2000s, and this was essentially their exit. You know, they at day one they had 20-something% of the new T-Mobile, but then quickly, as we expected, they might monetize that position, and now they own a single digit.
So in the end, they own 4 or 5% now of T-Mobile,
right.
SoftBank. Yeah. And who is the majority shareholder?
Well, Deutsche Telekom has about 48, but they also can vote those SoftBank shares, so they can vote just past 50, so they're able to consolidate the results.
Okay, so why do I want 5G? I'm happy with 4G. Why do I need 5G? What am I going to do with 5G that I can't do with 4G?
Well, David, it's 25% more G.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
No, don't you want that?
But what am I going to do with it? I have to pay more for it, don't I? I have to pay more for 5G than 4G?
It's interesting. You know, this industry, every decade or so, a new technology comes about. 4G came about in about 2010. Verizon was the lead then. You saw Verizon, because of their early lead in 4G, they really led in network fame throughout the 2010 decade. We've jumped out in the 5G era with the lead in 5G. And it really is exciting for us as a company that 10 years ago was a distant number 4 and shrinking, a distant number 4 with negative revenue and EBITDA growth, to now be the leader in this current era of technology. And you know, what it basically is all about is about higher and higher capacity connections. I mean, if you just step back and you look at the broad sort of history of this industry, all content and communications of all kinds have left or are leaving their previous linear forms and landing on the internet. And the internet is going mobile. And so for us to be the country's leading pure play mobile internet company with the best assets and a 2-year lead in 5G, it's a great place to be. And what it gives you that 4G doesn't is essentially massive throughput. So we cover 2/3 of the country today with a form of 5G we call ultra capacity, about 225 million Americans. That's 10 times faster than your LTE connection. And what that allows you to do is all kinds of new experiences and applications that continue to unfold across this decade, like the metaverse applications you're now hearing more and more about that 2 years ago were a twinkle in people's eye. That's because they weren't possible 2 years ago because 5G wasn't rapidly deployed. And the same thing happened in 4G. You know, when 4G came out, people said, how am I going to use all this? I mean, I don't need all that to send a picture on my picture phone. But Apple created the iPhone, and Android phones came, and suddenly we had Uber, and we had Snapchat, and we had TikTok, and we have social media on people's phones because of 4G technology. That same thing is now beginning to unfold in 5G. And while it's happening, we're doing super high capacity things like giving home internet on your 5G connection. And that's just mind-blowing for somebody.
Okay, let's suppose maybe I need 5G. I didn't know I needed it, but maybe I need it.
Yeah. But I'm here to sell you, man.
Well, like I have this thing the other day, and I didn't know who I actually had. It turns out I have Verizon.
Yeah.
So why should I convert to T-Mobile?
Well, I mean, by the end of the day, you're going to be T-Mobile.
Am I going to save money? Am I get better service? What am I going to get from you that I'm not getting from Verizon?
Look, we call ourselves the UnCarrier because what we try to do is change the way this industry works for customers. The carriers have had fame in this industry for overpricing and underserving people. It's not been an industry. It's right up there with cable as being an industry that's not really beloved by consumers and businesses. We set out to change all that 10 years ago. And what we do is we figure out what are the pain points in this industry and we smash them. And that's been our track. That's been what has gotten us from a distant number 4 to a rapidly growing number 2 that's outgrowing everyone. And right now, the biggest pain point in the industry's history is being solved by T-Mobile. I mean, for 30 years, you have been forced to make a false choice in this industry between the best deal and the best network. Pick one. For 30 years, that's been true until now. You know, T-Mobile is now able to offer, and increasingly with each passing year, the best network experience you can have in the United States while saving you $900 per year for the rest of your life because of our lower prices.
But like if I call up the CEO of Verizon and said, well, I just met with the CEO of T-Mobile and he says, his is better, I get the best network and everything else, what is his argument?
I mean, he's going to say, everything Mike Sievert said is completely true.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just, you know. By the way, it's fascinating how this is. I'm a student of marketing, and for me, it's fascinating to watch, sports on the weekend and see everybody's commercials say they're the best 5G.
Right.
Yeah, we have 5G, and but what's interesting is both customers and the community of people that watch our industry sort of see through all that. Last year, despite a 10-year track record of turning this company around and growing it at historic rates, last year, 21, the most recently completed year, was the greatest growth year ever in our history, with 5.5 million new postpaid customers joining us, the highest number we've ever accomplished. And so that's happening because people see through all the commercials. They understand that we're able to offer a better deal. And
why are you able to do that? What do you have the others don't have? You have better spectrum? Is that basically what you have?
We have the best asset portfolio, and that's a great start. And that's why we worked so hard on the merger, because we knew we would have the incredible brand at T-Mobile that's famous for loving its customers, and we could marry that with an asset base that allows us to have a more capital-efficient business model.
So was it surprising you it took 2 years for the government to say it was okay?
Well, it took a long time, and it was kind of tracking to take a year and a half or less when the company was sued by a group of attorneys general. And then we thought, well, maybe we'll be able to work it out with them, et cetera, and there were lots of discussions, but in the end, we had to defeat them in federal court. So that took another 6
You didn't have to settle with them or anything? You didn't pay them any money?
Tried hard to settle with them, and but in the end...
Okay, so the other day I was in New York City, and I'm walking on West 57th, and I said, I saw a T-Mobile store. So I said, I'd never been in a T-Mobile store, so I walked in. And I met the young woman there, and I said, guess what? I'm going to interview the CEO in a couple of days. And she said, people say that all the time when they come in here. What I want to do is sell you something. And she told me the best service that
I can't believe she didn't send you out with a plan. How are you still on Verizon if you were in our store?
She went through the various...
What store was that?
I won't out her, but they said for $85 a month, I would get the best thing. Is that the maximum?
What's the best? You said, just tell me.
I said, what's the best you have? Said $85 a month, you get everything you possibly want. Is that what it basically costs?
For the first line, yeah, and then a lot less for each successive line. So she's talking about our most popular plan right now, which is called Magenta Max. And it's not only our best, it's actually the one most people are signing up for. And we just did a big move a couple weeks ago that doubles down on one of the most popular moves we ever did back in 2013. Right. We did this thing called Simple Global, and it blew people's minds. We said, you can have the whole world for free with your plan. Just nothing to sign up for even before your trip. Like, you get off the plane anywhere in the world. Back then it was only 110 countries. Now it's 210. And it's just going to work. All your data, your texting, et cetera, calls on Wi-Fi included for free, et cetera. And last month, we announced that we would double down on all that with a new UnCarrier move called Coverage Beyond, where now we give 210 countries on that plan with high-speed data. So you can have 5G, 4G, whatever that country offers, included with your plan with nothing
for $85 a month.
Yeah. And so,
how come you don't say like $84.99 like other people? Yeah. Say $85. You don't use that. Right, so suppose I say I can't afford $85 a month. Yeah. I want the cheapest. Yeah. I only want to make a couple calls.
A family of 4 is 200, so it starts to go down as you.
But suppose I say I'm one person. I only want the cheapest, least expensive service you have. What does that cost?
$15
a month.
Yeah.
And what do you get for that? One call a month, or
yeah.
What do you get for 15?
All of our plans include calls and texts because it's 2022, David. But
okay. Okay. All right.
But you get data. It's a matter of how much data you get.
All right.
And that plan offers a couple gigs or so of data, and it's at the highest speed. But even after that, it gives you unlimited data at a slower speed. And some people just want to be able to manage that. They don't want to be socked with an overage. They don't want a surprise bill. But they do need wireless, because right now this service that we offer, to your opening question of the audience, is an essential service that people need. And some people need it at very affordable rates. And so that's where we start.
Now, you're not in the wired telephone business, you're in the wireless, right?
That's right.
So you think the wired business is a good business to be in, or that's dying?
Well, I mean, there's massive investment in this country going into fiber. And lots of private equity are interested in fiber, as you know. Lots of big companies are interested in it. And we own a fiber asset that came from Sprint. Sprint was very famously a fiber company, and we're still in that business. But we're not in last mile fiber. And I ruled it out. But right now, valuations are very high. There's lots of government interest in this area as well, and that, that's certainly changing the investment thesis for some companies as that starts to move its way through the system, and companies might be able to access government funding to help those last mile reaches in places that might otherwise be uneconomic.
Now, sometimes if you drive down the dullest toll road, I've noticed that the signal drops. Maybe not on yours.
Well, again, now you've got the Verizon, right?
Right.
Okay.
But is that a common problem, or is that they're fixing that?
Honestly, it's very interesting for me to be in this position because an awful lot of people, I'm sure people in this room too, have a perception of T-Mobile's network that is outdated by some amount of essentially all of the capital that we've deployed over the last 2 or 3 years. So 2022 is the biggest capital year ever in our history, and 2021 is the second biggest. And so if you heard about T-Mobile in 2020, we've spent tens of billions of dollars since then building out our network on the strength of this superior spectrum portfolio and our 5G lead. And so what's interesting is that was like the day, people even refer to that as last year because of the pandemic. So quote, last year, like before the pandemic, you might have tried T-Mobile and it was completely different than now. And that's kind of our marketing burden is to try to make sure people have a way to perceive the advantages that we now have.
When companies in England were trying to build out their 5G, really ahead of the United States, the U.S. government said, well, you're using Huawei equipment, which is Chinese owned, and it's not going to be safe and so forth. So where do you get your 5G equipment? Is it made by Huawei, or who makes your equipment, and you're not worried about Chinese interference or something?
Yeah, no, we don't have any Huawei technology in our network. Our core partners are Ericsson and Nokia.
So they make the 5G parts.
Yeah.
I see. And today, what about if I'm worried that somebody's going to hack into my phone? How can I be assured you're not going to, somebody can't hack in?
I mean, no company's immune from, cyber attacks, and they are horrible and they're rampant. But the actual transmission of your phone technology is highly secure. And it's one of the advantages of 5G versus, let's say, legacy technologies like Wi-Fi.
Israeli company, which seems to have perfected the idea of hacking into one's phones. You have to sell the service only to a government or something. But how can I be sure that somebody not using that technology is not hacking into my phone? I mean, there's no way to be sure, right?
No, there's no way to be sure. Well, all we can do as consumers is adopt technologies that have a security-first mindset. And 5G was designed with security in mind.
Where is the best 5G in the world? Is it China, Europe, some other place, or is it the United States?
T-Mobile. I'm not just here to sell my book, but T-Mobile is the first company in a large geographic country to cover that country coast to coast with 5G. Nobody had done it before at a big geography country until T-Mobile had done it. We cover 330 million Americans. Right now, we cover 315 of them with 5G signal, and nobody else reaches that.
Where are the other 15
percentage.
Living in Washington or somewhere?
Hills and dales, et cetera.
Okay,
so that's remarkable. And so the U.S. A lot of people point to China with lots of admiration. The U.S. has massive investment. What are we, 4% of the U.S. population? This is
world population, about 5%.
CTIA statistic. Meredith's here in the front row. We have about 18% of the investment going on.
Okay.
Against 4% of the population, and you can see that in results like T-Mobile's.
Right. Suppose I say I want to sit out the 5G revolution. I'm waiting for 6G. Yeah. What is 6G? When is that going to happen?
Don't you think 5G has been so breathlessly hyped for so long? Like nobody wants to hear about 6G. They're still waiting for how 5G is going to change my life.
Is there a 6G coming anytime soon? I was waiting for that.
It's hard to predict the timelines, but if you look at 4 to 5G, it was about a decade before you saw kind of like-for-like deployments. 2010 for 4G, 2020 for 5G. So you could maybe anticipate we'd be looking at broad deployments of 6G technology by the beginning of the next decade.
So I missed the 4G revolution a bit, and so I didn't invest in Uber or other things that were helped by 4G. What would be the kind of companies I should invest in that are going to be helped by 5G?
I'd say 2 or 3 things. One, anything that is about taking very high capacity, very low latency, meaning fast response times, into the mobile realm are going to be things that benefit from 5G. So right off the bat, telepresence, gaming on mobile devices have always had a disadvantage until now. Metaverse, there's obviously tens of billions going into metaverse, and whether this will be 3D TVs or whether it'll be the future of how we live our lives is up for grabs. But I think it'll be somewhere in between, and it's a serious deal. And so metaverse, it's a massive, augmented reality is about transmitting massive amounts of data across a mobile network, and then returning you an experience that improves your life somehow. And all that has to happen in real time. Look at telepresence. If we learned in COVID, thank goodness COVID happened in 2020 and not 2010. We were able to do video and get by. But let's face it, it wasn't as good. It wasn't like being there. There's a reason we gather here and we travel for business, is so we can have eye contact and we can have, you know, synchronous communication. We can interrupt each other and build on each other's ideas, and we can build trust. Those kinds of things don't happen in telephony yet because telephony is not good enough yet. They require low latency, massive connectivity combined with hardware and software innovation. That's what you saw in 4G. 4G, as I said, 4G came along before smartphones, and people looked at that and said, the iPhone's going to be possible, or Android phones are going to be possible, and the applications that we now take for granted all emerged on the back of 4G technology, and that innovation cycle is happening at pace right now.
Okay, so I should be happy with 5G, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and not wait for 6G?
No, go ahead and jump in, David.
Okay.
I think it's,
It's safe to jump in. Okay, so by the way, what type of phone do you use?
I carry an iPhone.
An iPhone. And do you subscribe to your competitors to see how they're doing?
Absolutely. I'm obsessed
On one
with
phone, you have different,
Yeah.
you can do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, part of what I do, I go around, I try and take care of customers, and I try and take care of our network. And so, like, I'm only one guy, but I'm interested in this. So everywhere I go, I'm obsessed with the signal. And if there's a place where we don't have signal that the other guys do, I expect something to be done about that.
So, how many customers do you have?
110 million.
All right, how many of those 110 million pay each month by a check?
Very, very few.
Me, I'm the other one.
Yeah.
So most
You do
people,
that at the grocery store too. You're that guy, aren't you?
I take out cash actually, but so people actually do it online.
Yeah.
They pay online, right?
Yeah, you just tap your card, David.
And today, when you get a complaint from one of your customers, what's a typical biggest, most common complaint?
Well, it's the same actually across the industry. People are interested in their signal. They want it to work where they want it to work, and if it doesn't work reliably in the places they need it to, that's the key source of dissatisfaction. Not at T-Mobile, but at any of the providers in the industry. And then the other is confusion over their bill. You know, I don't think still, and we've made great strides on this, particularly at T-Mobile through our UnCarrier movement. But, you know, we, the industry, are still making this industry too complicated for consumers. I mean, ultimately what we do is pretty simple. We transmit a signal for you to your industry standard Samsung or iPhone or you know, Android phone, and we charge you by the month for that. Shouldn't be so complicated, but it is, and people get confused about their bill or say that the promotion wasn't right. And
but does anybody get a bill anymore that has each of your calls that you make? Because in the old days, you get paid for each call. Does anybody get those anymore?
Yeah, you're wondering if you've got call logs?
I'm just wondering whether everybody gets a monthly charge. It doesn't make a difference how many calls you make anymore?
No, but you can access that information in our app.
You can.
But
suppose somebody says, I just want to make 2 or 3 calls a month. I don't want to pay for a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Can you actually only pay by the call, or nobody does that anymore?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about your company.
Yeah.
When COVID came, how were you running the company? Were you staying at home, or what were you doing?
Well, for us, it was fascinating. We had the additional complication of creating our new company on April 1st of 2020. So we received our judgment in the federal case in February. That set up a very short period, and we closed the transaction and created what's now T-Mobile on April 1st of 2020, about 3 weeks after sending everybody home. And at that point, we had 80% of our stores were even closed. Our staff was at home. We were rapidly figuring out how to take 3 million customer care calls a week from people's homes instead of from our customer experience centers. And, you know, it was a crazy time. But we had the additional complexity of becoming a company and welcoming the other half of our company during that, like 5 minutes into it. And, of course, that was my first day as CEO as well.
Well, suppose you were, okay, let me make sure I understand. If you were a Sprint customer and you get merged with T-Mobile, how many people said, I really like Sprint, I'm not going to stay with T-Mobile? Did people drop, or they just had no choice, they had to stay?
Well, this is the first merger where we've been able to separate out the migration moments and make it way more customer friendly. So your rate plan, your network you're connected to, the brand and the offers, the devices, each one of these are a discrete decision that you can make or not make, and which is so much more customer friendly than prior mergers and better for our operations. So what we started to do was just simply give Sprint customers more and more and more network from the T-Mobile side by redirecting their phone to the closest and best tower. So they started seeing their signal improve, and they liked that. And then we start telling them, well, that's T-Mobile making your signal better, and they like that. And then we say, so you want to switch to a T-Mobile plan and also see if we can save you some money? Well, okay, maybe. How about a new phone? You know, and it's basically this kind of progression. And we're near the end of that process now. And so in an industry famous for, like, rife with just disastrous mergers, I think we have a chance of showing up at the 3-year point next year, basically put a pin in this as the most successful telecom merger in the history of our industry. And the hardest parts are now behind us. We're doing the network shutdown of Sprint right now because substantially all the traffic is on the T-Mobile side. And it's going great. And people are really appreciating the stronger signal from the new combined footprint is some of those towers plus all of those.
So if somebody calls up and says, I want to see my monthly calls, who I made calls to for my own records.
They don't, but you do, and I'm going to make sure you get that
Well,
information.
like, let's suppose the government of the United States says we're investigating people that made calls. Do you have to get like say a court order for you to give that information up? More or less?
Yeah, there's a standard industry process by which we reply to subpoenas, and they happen at scale. I mean, we have an entire operation under Mark Nelson here in the front row that responds to those subpoenas and provides the data that's required.
Okay, so your company is based in Bellevue.
Yep.
Is that the centrally most located place you could have, or?
Yeah, it's on the way to everything.
Why is it, I'm just curious, why is it in Bellevue?
You know, when people come see us, we know we matter, you know?
Okay.
It's great. No, I mean, as I said, our industry was really started in the Seattle area.
Okay.
And so an awful lot of when I was CMO at AT&T Wireless in 2002, it was based in Redmond, Washington back then. It eventually made its way with the Singular and SBC and Bell South and AT&T mergers to Dallas. But that was the headquarters then for the wireless operation and the wireless company. And so it's just, you know, strong roots for our industry. Clearwire was based in
So if you were to
Seattle,
compare the service that you provide to your customers with the service wireless operators provide in any other country in the world, is there any country in the world you think does a better job than your company or your competitors in providing cellular telephone service to people?
Yeah, because some countries are very small. And so you can get the equivalent of what our service is like inside one of our metros, like in New York City where we're number one, or you know, LA or Chicago or Miami, all of which where we're number one. You've got countries that have that kind of a footprint. And so those are countries that got 5G very quickly. You know, South Korea is a great example, very well-covered country.
Where do you think the industry is heading? In other words, you have a lot of customers now, but are you going to get into other businesses? What's the future? Or do you want to be a cellular telephone company the rest of your life, or do you want to be a technology company that does more than cellular?
Well, we'll be guided by our mission, the best in the world at connecting customers to their world. And that means maybe, you know, and what I like about us right now is that we are a mobile internet company at a time when the mobile internet, you know, is taking over. But we've got advantages that could allow us to smartly move into adjacencies. We just need to be smarter than, you know, others in our industry have been in the past and make sure they're true adjacencies. But our brand is incredibly strong. Our team is highly differentiated by every measure of customer experience. We have an incredible network. We have incredible data. And so all these things can inform businesses. But for me, it's about making sure that we are in businesses where we have the competency and the permission to win. And so far, that's really working.
And today, your workforce, approximately you have 75,000 employees. 75,000 employees. What's the diversity in that, and how are you improving your diversity?
We are 59% diverse in terms of ethnic diversity. And like most companies, that goes down a little bit as you get to the most senior levels. But DE&I has been part of our strengths for a long time in our company. That being said, like many companies, we created a revitalized, renewed effort on it in 2020, not just because of the big events that happened then, but also because we created a 5-year, what we call Equity in Action Plan in 2020, and hired an external advisory council of some of the best thinkers in this space in the country. People like Mark Morial of the Urban League, Reverend Al Sharpton, incredible leaders from major national organizations who have committed their time to us to meet with us several times a year, review our data, give us advice and direction. And so between that and the plans themselves of how we're operating, we're seeing our numbers move, and it's been really exciting to see.
The average person uses his or her cell phone how many minutes or hours a day, would you say?
Well, it's hours.
Hours.
Yeah, and it's, you look at a customer like our Magenta Max customers, our most popular plan, the one they offered you, which includes global data in 220 countries around the world. Those customers are using now 3 times more than a typical customer on a typical connection, 4G connection. It's so cool. I mean, 5 times more gaming, 3 times more streaming media, and so it's.
What about people who are addicted to looking at their phone every 2 minutes or so? Is that a problem you can solve, or?
It's not the highest on my list, but yeah. But one of the things that's interesting is that it's not just about your phone anymore. It's mobile technology. But what's, the last 2 quarters in a row, the nation's fastest growing home broadband provider of any kind is T-Mobile. So we're powering now your entire internet connection in your entire house, and we had more new customers join T-Mobile than any cable company, or than AT&T or Verizon last quarter and the quarter before. And it's a brand new service of ours. And so it's fascinating now how this technology is able to solve problems outside the traditional realms, and it's not just about your phone.
What part of the country uses cell phones the most? In other words, is it per let's say, person, is it 1 hour a day in Washington, 2 hours a day in New York, or do you know how that works?
I actually don't.
Really? There's one thing you don't know.
I don't know it. But I would assume, based on how much spectrum we have dedicated, it can be a proxy that the big urbans like New York and LA.
Let's talk about your own background for a moment. You grew up in Canton, Ohio.
Yep.
That's where the Football Hall of Fame is. Is that what you spent a lot of time doing going to that when you were growing up, or what?
I look like a major football athlete, yeah.
Okay, so you did well in high school. You were most likely to succeed, or something like that?
I was, but more importantly, I was voted most likely to be a TV game show host, and that is something I have not yet made good on.
All right, so you went to Wharton. Did you know you wanted to be in business?
I did, yeah. I think I'm one of the few people, I don't know, maybe not few, but I'm one of the people doing what I dreamt of doing when I was a teenager. I read, the celebrity CEO, like Lee Iacocca's book came out in the 80s when I was a teenager. And I read that, and I was like, I want to lead a great American company one day. And
now you've been in a lot of different companies. Is that because you can't hold a job, or you just get
well, that's
promoted
my
up?
mom's version of it. Yeah, my mom's version of it is that. Yeah,
you've been in a lot of companies.
Holding down
why did you start at
They
Procter?
tire of me after a couple of years.
But if you start at Procter & Gamble, it's a nice company. But what were you doing there?
I wanted to be. I looked out of school at consulting and at marketing, and I had opportunities in both. And I decided marketing would be my best path to general management, just based on what I'm good at. And so I chose a place where I could really learn marketing with Procter & Gamble. But I always knew I wanted to be in technology. And I bought my first PC, if you want to call it that, in 1977 with proceeds from my newspaper route, a TRS-80 Model 1. You remember that computer? You had one of those? Yeah. And I couldn't afford the floppy disk drive, so I had the cassette tape deck as my storage. And so I've been passionate about technology literally my whole life. And so I wanted to be in marketing, but I also wanted to make my way to technology. So my first 2 jobs were sort of informed by that. I learned marketing for 6 years at Procter & Gamble, then went to IBM to learn technology, and thought I would stay at IBM. I was really enjoying it, but the dot-com boom of the 90s started to take root, and I headed to California to lead marketing.
So what do you do to stay in shape, or exercise, or relax? What do you ever do?
Suzanne and I love to be outdoors, and it's a big part of the culture up in the Northwest. But I'm not much of an exercise guy. You know, we
don't
walk.
exercise much. You walk.
Yeah, you know.
You don't climb mountains
Yeah,
like your
no,
son.
not a mountain climber like Nate. I guess I have very shallow hobbies, David. My hobbies all involve operating vehicles. So, you know, whether it's, you know, boats or cars or airplanes. I have a seaplane and I'm a pilot, and that's kind of one of my passions.
Is that safe for you? I mean, you're the CEO of a big company. They mind you flying around on a seaplane?
Yeah, I don't know and I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah. If the, no, statistically, it's operating single-engine planes is about like riding a motorcycle. Neither statistically are particularly safe activities. But what differentiates them is, I think, how much focus and dedication you put into the safety, which to me is the hobby. You know, it's about taking it seriously, and definitionally, a hobby should, this does it literally, but it should figuratively transport you. It needs to transport your mental state into something other than your day-to-day concerns. And for me, when I'm operating an aircraft, there's no room in my brain for everything else because I'm very focused on what's required.
But do you take a co-pilot?
Well, my plane is really small, and it seats 2 of us. And Suzanne is not a pilot, but she has practiced landing it. But also it has a full ballistic parachute system. And so if something were to happen to me, she can pull the chute and the entire aircraft comes down.
Does that make you feel safe that they designed it with a parachute in it? I mean,
yeah. No, but importantly, it makes her feel safe. And I think that's the, you know, that's the difference maker.
Okay,
yeah.
so you're in Washington today, I assume, for a lot of other things other than this. Are you seeing government regulators, legislators?
Yeah.
Is that an uplifting experience for you when you do this?
Yeah, I think like most business leaders, you know, I find myself here reasonably regularly, and it's mainly to visit with government, and you know, we're doing that tomorrow all day long, but yeah.
But like, what are you trying to get from?
Timing-wise, the main purpose of the trip was to come see you and appreciate.
So generally, what are you trying to get the government to do that they're not doing? Be efficient or something?
Your government at work. We're interested in all kinds of issues, including the ones I talked about. As you know, legislation was passed recently that is very interested in making sure every American in this country is covered by broadband, and we're interested in that as well. So that's a topic of interest. Making sure taxation is a big interest for us. There's
higher taxation.
Yeah, well, fair taxation.
Fair tax. Okay.
You know, what's interesting is there's some real wonky stuff in the proposed tax codes that could unfairly tax T-Mobile relative to our 2 principal competitors, AT&T and Verizon.
Was that by accident, or their lobbyists were better than yours, or what?
I think it's by accident.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
But we need to make sure.
All right. So you're going to let people know about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So today, you've been the CEO for about 2 years, but you've been in the company for quite a while.
Yeah.
And your CEO, your predecessor, was a very legendary figure, John Legere. Why did he step down? He was a relatively young guy. Did you say to him, if you don't step down, I'm going elsewhere, or why did he step down?
No, you know, I think it was timed with the merger, and you know, John was just essential at conceiving of and working on this merger, and I think he viewed it as just a fantastic milestone. You know, and you think about when John and I both arrived about the same time in 2012. He recruited me, but I came about 4 or 5 weeks after him, and you know, T-Mobile was a distant number 4. Shrinking rapidly. We lost 2.2 million customers in 2012, just inside that year. And you know, you think about what he was able to do with his team. It's historic. And you know, and then to culminate it in this merger and create this new company, you know, just an incredible run. And for me, it's been a privilege to be, you know, a part of that.
So you've only been CEO 2 years, and you're young, so you could do this another 10 years or so?
I heard you were suggesting maybe 30, which is, yeah, look, I don't know. It could be short, it could be long.
You'd be younger than the President of the United States in 30 years,
yeah.
still, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I really like this. You know, and I think for all of us in our careers, we should do what we're doing if we like it, if we're adding value, the people around us still want us to.
But no interest in going to government service or anything like that?
I wouldn't rule anything out. You know, like you said, I'm a relatively young guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And today, what is the number of customers you're getting from those mobile stores? You have these You have how many stores you have around the country?
A little under 15,000.
And
if
do
you
they
include,
produce
Metro.
how many people do they sign up a day on average? They have a quota they have to sign up, or they close the store?
No. Most of our traffic in our stores is taking care of our customers. So we do, it is the key place people come when they want to switch to T-Mobile, but most of the traffic is people coming in to get their new phone or to get a problem solved or even to pay their bill. Metro by T-Mobile, which is our flagship prepaid brand, operates several thousand of those stores. And an awful lot of our customers with Metro come in every month with money to pay their bill. That's how they pay, is to come to our store.
They pay in cash or
Yes.
something? Wow,
It's $40 a month. They come in with 220s. We
So
don't,
if
we don't
somebody
charge
doesn't-
taxes and fees, so you can hand us 220s and see you next month.
Somebody doesn't pay their bill, how long before you cut off their service?
Well, what's interesting about prepaid is you have this low price and predictable, but you must pay it in time or it doesn't keep working. So that's Metro. On T-Mobile, we have a significant number of our customers that get a little behind, and then they reach out to us and we do a payment plan with them to try and give them time. Sometimes it's weeks and weeks. And almost all of them cure that eventually. So people run in, and this is a competency that I think will serve us well if a recession comes, because we've always been great at figuring out ways to profitably serve people who have variable economic circumstances. Sometimes they've got money and then they have a patch where they don't. And you know what? Most of them will cure that. You give them the time and space, because this is an essential product. They don't want it cut off. You give them the time and the patience.
But how long
they will find a way.
How much time do you give? Yeah. Let's suppose somebody just forgets the bill, or the bill went to the wrong address or something. How long does it take before you cut them off?
Well, as long as they come to the app, most of our payment arrangements are actually done in our app. So they've got the T-Mobile app in their phone, and they can just ask for more time, and we grant it. And in some cases, it's weeks and weeks.
But after they don't pay for a month or two or three, you finally figure out they're not going to pay?
Yeah. Are you trying to figure out when you switch?
I'm just figuring out
how to optimize. Yeah. It's great, because when we get you, I want to make sure that you understand the flexibility that's available to you.
So what is the pleasure of running a cellular telephone company? I mean, why would you tell somebody who's graduating from college or business school or whatever school they should join this industry?
Well, part of it is the impact that we have. And to me, it's fascinating. You ask people about this product. This product that we offer, people will literally stack rank right up there with their rent and their food. I mean, it's above their personal hygiene products. Think about that in a crowded room. And so it's important, and it's important to get it right, and it's advanced technology. And so for me, what I love it as somebody who's really interested in customers and people and marketing and really interested in technology is that for me, the career is about marrying those two things. And it's incredibly intellectually interesting to do that, because I get to play in technology problems that are incredibly sophisticated and in an all-out brand war that's as epic as Coke Pepsi of the 1980s. And I think I love it, and our people love that. Our retention rates are terrific.
So the United States has roughly 330 million people, let's say above the age of, 15, maybe you have, maybe 280 million people, I'm not sure. What percentage of those adults would you say have a cell phone?
Substantially all of them. And from about 11 years old up.
What age do children get? Is that when they get them now? And they lobby their parents and 11 years old? And
it's actually,
do you have ads that say to little kids, get your parents to get your phone?
It corresponds with unsupervised play. So every parent's different, but unsupervised play starts to happen at 10, 11, 12, where I'm going down to the park. It's 2 blocks away, and I'll see you at dinner, and I'll be gone for 2 hours with no one chaperoning me. And that tends to happen with many parents around age 11, and they're like, you can go to the park, here's your phone, or here's your phone watch or something.
But you can monitor where your children are on your phone, right? Do you have to get their permission to do that?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you have 2 children, you know where they are all the time.
Yeah, well, my children are adults. They're 27 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're also millennials, and millennials aren't that interested in privacy, so they don't.
And can the children monitor where the parents are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, in our family.
Wow. Okay. So the greatest pleasure you're getting is basically servicing the country and getting them this service. Is that why you like the job?
I like the competitiveness. When we created this new company, we promised the government, that took 2 years to decide, we would create a more competitive market. And that's what we've done. And I love this industry in that I worked at Microsoft for a few years, and I would kind of get a report. I ran the global Windows business. I would get a report like every month, how are we doing, almost. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little. But like every morning, I get a report at 8 in the morning, and it says how we did yesterday across every aspect of our operation. And 2, 3, 4 of those reports makes a trend. And, and we just focus tenaciously on how to run this company the best it can possibly be run against scaled competitors. They're some of the richest companies in the world. I love that. I just think, that's...
So you seem like a very happy person, generally speaking. You don't spend
so
much
do you,
time.
yeah.
Right? So did you ever get depressed about anything? I mean, you seem like you're a pretty happy guy.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you be so happy?
Yeah. Do you know, Suzanne and I are celebrating 30 years of marriage this next month, and so that's
wow, good
that's
for
one
you.
of the things that
you met her in...
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. I met her move-in day freshman year of undergrad at Penn. We were in a co-ed dorm on the same floor, and we've been together ever since. And
what's the odds of that?
Yeah, 2 wonderful kids, and
well, good for
can't
you.
complain. Yeah.
Look, it's a great story. Congratulations on your success. I have a little gift for you that I'd like to give you. Thank you. Let's see, where is it? Right here. Okay. This is a historic map of...
Oh, very nice.
Here we are. Thank you.